Indians run the world. And I'm not exaggerating or being boastful about that at all. All you gotta do is look at all the major corporations worldwide and who runs them. And not just that, look at all of the most decorated doctors and surgeons in the world. The most sought after engineers in Silicon Valley. No matter what prestigious institution and no matter what part of the world, Indians have always left their mark, their legacy. And yet, India ranks 91st in the Corruption Perceptions Index. We score a measly 39 out of 100 on that scale. Our rivers are drying out, our forests are being cut down, and our courts have a whopping 50 million pending cases. 50 million. Let that sink in. Our cities can produce millionaires and billionaires, yet we cannot provide its citizens with clean drinking water. How is that even possible? How does the same civilization that produces the world's most capable professionals come home and accept broken roads, rigged systems, and institutions that exist only to humiliate the people they're supposed to serve? This video isn't about some corrupt politician. This video is about someone much more important than that. It's about you. Now let's imagine an Indian student landing in the US, UK or Canada. Within months, they're following traffic rules they ignored their whole life back home. They're standing in queues without pushing each other. They're also not trying to bribe anyone. They're also not trying to cut corners. Nobody trained them to do this. Nobody threatened them either. They just chose to do it. Why? And if we were to ask them why, then they'd say that's how things work here. Think about what that actually means. It means that our behavior was never the problem. The same individual who honked every 3 seconds in India is now waiting patiently at a pedestrian crossing in Toronto. The same person who slipped cash to a government clerk in a small Indian town is now filing accurate returns online in London without a second thought. What this means that the capability for civic behavior was always there. It just never had the right environment to appear. And what exactly is this environment made of? Well, it's made of two things: systems that work and consequences that are real. When the road is well designed, people follow the rules. When the queue actually moves without braking, people stand in it. When institutions genuinely serve you, you respect them. In other words, the Indians abroad behave like good citizens because the system treats them like one. Back home, the system never did. And if you ask someone, how do we fix this problem, they say fix the system. But here's the question. Who fixes the system? Citizens. Where are the citizens? What happens when citizens have spent their entire lives being trained not to think of themselves as citizens? From the moment an Indian child is born, the entire weight of family, school and society is pointed at one target: your personal success. Marks, rank, job, salary, retirement plans, blah blah blah. Here, the unit of achievement is always the individual, the family. But not the street, not the town, not the city, not the country. Civic identity, which basically means that people think that the public space belongs to them, the institutions belong to them, that you have both the right and the responsibility to demand better, was never installed. And some may say that this is because Indians are selfish. Well, who isn't selfish? That isn't the problem here. The problem is, we were never told that actually we are the owners of this country. This is our country. For decades, we were taught that we are guests in our own house. And guests do not fix the house. They do not renovate the house, do they? There's a particular type of Indian we produce consistently. Hardworking, disciplined, intelligent, capable of absorbing enormous pressure without breaking, able to navigate complex hierarchies with grace, able to deliver results inside systems they didn't create nor choose. The world calls such people talented. Corporations call them invaluable. Ivy League colleges and universities welcome them. And India calls them successful. And don't get me wrong, they are, by every measurable standard. The Indian employee is one of the most formidable human beings in the modern world. But here's what nobody examines. What exactly were we trained to do? We were trained not to question, but to execute. We were trained not to challenge, but to adapt. We were trained not to lead, but to rise within the system in the hierarchy. The entire Indian education system is built around one cognitive skill: pattern recognition under enormous pressure. Spot what the examiner wants, reproduce it perfectly, score higher than the person next to you. The student who asks questions becomes the problem, and the student who complies becomes a genius. This produces an individual who is exceptional at working within structures, but not so much when it comes to challenging such structures. Now think about what a good employee actually is. The good employee understands the rules of the system. He plays by the rules. He never challenges the system. He uses the system to further his career. He becomes a part of the system. Within these systems, they're loyal to the hierarchy because the hierarchy is what distributes rewards. This is precisely what India trained its people to be. And for 1,000 years, that training made sense. Under colonial rule, under feudal systems, under authorities that were both powerful and indifferent. Here, the rational move was always compliance. Resistance was costly. Adaptation was survival. And our history tells us that the people who kept their heads down lived, and the people who stood up didn't. Cultures don't forget lessons like that quickly. What looks like apathy today was once a survival strategy. What looks like indifference today was once the only sane response to a public life that offered nothing and took everything. And the biggest tragedy is that times have changed, but our mindset hasn't. So the next question is, how do these insecurities get transferred from one generation to the next? Well, obviously not through textbooks, not through government policy, but through something far more intimate and far harder to question: the family. Hear me out. The Indian family is one of the most powerful socializing forces on earth. It provides love, security, identity, and belonging in ways that genuinely very few cultures can match. But it also gives orders, very specific instructions about what life is for and what success looks like. Watch what Indian parents celebrate: marks, admissions, placements, salaries. And watch what we worry about: reputation, stability, what will our neighbors think, what will our relatives think. Now observe what never gets mentioned: civic responsibility, political awareness, the condition of our cities our children will grow up in, whether the institutions around us are just or corrupt, whether the taxes we pay actually serve anyone. You see, it's not that the Indian parent doesn't care. They do care, but their care stops at the gate. Everything inside the gate is sacred, and everything outside the gate is not a problem. This is where the employee mindset is first installed. Long before any school or corporation gets to the child, the family has already delivered the core message. Your job is to secure yourself and your people, not your neighbors, not your street, not your town, not your city, not your country. And that's what our children learn. They learn that their brilliant uncle who questioned his corrupt boss got transferred. They learn that their neighbor who filed a complaint against the municipality waited 3 years and got nothing. They learn that their activist cousin is admired at family dinners, but also quietly pitied everywhere else. They learn that the people who fought the system lost, and the people who adapted to the system won. This is not abstract knowledge. This is data. And the child who sees this data reaches a conclusion. Resistance is futile, in fact dangerous, and compliance is beneficial. So they comply. They excel, they rise, they make their family proud, and then one day they're sitting in a senior position at a global company making decisions that affect thousands of people with remarkable ethical clarity. And on their way home, they pay a bribe to get their driving license renewed without even blinking. Now, is this because all of us are corrupt? Well, not all of us can be corrupt at the same time, can we? Let's say there's a nuance to this. The same logic applies here as well. Inside your office, you're a professional. But outside your office, you don't have to be that professional anymore. You can be just like anybody else. Outside, you're just a person trying to get home. Now let's talk about something called as the meritocracy trap, because it indicts the most self-aware Indian. Okay, so tell me, who's the most dangerous Indian among us all? Is it the corrupt politician? Is it the indifferent bureaucrat? Or is it somebody who has had no access to education or opportunity ever? I'll tell you who it is. It's the one who has made it, the successful one. Why? Bear with me for a second. The IIT graduate, the first generation professional, the person who came from nothing, worked with everything they had, and broke through a system that was designed to break them. These kind of people exist in enormous numbers in our country, and they carry a belief. They say that I succeeded, hence the system works. That is the meritocracy trap. Because what that belief actually does is transform personal triumph into political paralysis. If I climbed out of that well with hard work and intelligence, then the system isn't broken. It's just difficult. And if it's just difficult, then the people stuck inside simply haven't worked hard enough. So the problem isn't that well that we're stuck in, nor is it the ladder that we use to climb out of it, and nor is the person trying to gaslight us. This is how the most capable Indians become the most reliable defenders of a system that fails them. And honestly, they're not lying either. Their experience is real. They did work hard. They did climb out. But they're confusing a personal data point for a structural truth. Now, add the NRI layer to this. The Indian who lives and thrives abroad doesn't just escape a broken system. The daily negotiation with dysfunction, the energy tax of living in a place that fights you at every single turn. Abroad, that energy gets redirected into productivity, into civic participation, and into building something. And it works so well that it confirms their deepest suspicion, that the problem was always India and not me. That is partly true and completely unhelpful, because India never needed its best people to prove themselves elsewhere. We need them here. So, what would actually change this? Not inspiration, not patriotism, and definitely not another speech about potential. The only thing that is capable of breaking this pattern and setting us free is when people start to believe that the system belongs to them, that the institutions belong to them. The problems that we see in these institutions, the problems that we see in our country, is not for somebody else to solve. Don't do it because it's noble. Do it because it's your duty. Do it because we are tired of living inside the consequences of other people's indifference. Change in India never comes from the top. It always starts at the grassroots level. It comes from a person who, after realizing what's going on, says enough. So the question here is what it's going to take for them to stop being excellent employees and start being decent citizens. By the way, a democratic country belongs to its people, not to its politicians, and definitely not to its oligarchs. So here's where we land. Not with a solution, not with a roadmap, and not with 10 things that you can do to fix India by Friday. Because that's not how India works, and that's not how reality works either. And if you're one of those people who think that first we gotta do X, then Y, then Z, and that's it, then that expectation itself is a part of the problem. We are so conditioned to wait for instructions that even our self-reflection needs a deliverable. And here's what's true instead. India is not suffering from a shortage of intelligence. It is not suffering from a shortage of capability or ambition or even awareness. Walk into any office, any university, and any middle-class drawing room. You'll find people who'll diagnose the problem. With scary accuracy, by the way. They'll speak about corruption, dysfunction, institutional failure, yada yada yada. And then they'll go back to their lives without changing a single thing. Because understanding the problem has never been the gap. The gap has always been about ownership. The employee knows what's wrong with the company, whereas the owner loses his sleep over it. The employee optimizes their position within a broken system. The owner cannot rest until the system is in a better position than they found it in. The employee's loyalty is to his career. The owner's loyalty is to his company. India over the years has produced extraordinarily talented employees, but not decent citizens. But we have a choice. Not a conscious one, not a free one, but a choice nonetheless. Every time a capable person ignores his civic duties, he's making a choice. Every time somebody decides to vote against their own interests, sometimes to not vote at all, they're making a choice again. Every time somebody who knows better decides to bribe someone to get something done, again, they're making a choice. Such small choices, made by hundreds of millions of people every day, coalesce into a giant problem. This is not fate. This is not destiny. This is not culture. It's a habit. And habits can break. Not through inspiration, definitely not through a video, including this one, but through the slow, unglamorous, deeply personal decision that the distance between the Indian you're at work and the Indian you're as a citizen is no longer something you're willing to live with. You see, you were never an employee. You were the owner. You're the citizen of this country.